My wife and I have a daughter named Madison who's 20 and recently had a baby girl a few weeks ago. I wasn't thrilled about it, but my wife and I have been supportive. She still lives with us, so we've all had to adapt to a baby in the house. My wife and I have two other kids, one of which, Ryan, is pre-tween and has terrible ADHD. He's very energetic and is always running around the house making noise. We're all used to how he behaves. Nobody ever had a problem with it until Madison brought a baby into the house. Everything was fine until Madison started complaining to my wife and me that Ryan was repeatedly waking up the baby after she's finally settled down to sleep by making loud noises and barging into her room to look at her and try to wake her up from her sleep to play with her. She complained about it a few times, so I told Ryan that he needs to keep in mind that the baby's trying to sleep, so he has to keep it down a bit, and he seemed to understand what I was saying. I also reminded Madison that Ryan can't help how he behaves and is naturally loud and full of energy. I heard nothing about it for a while, so I assumed that it was sorted, but I was in the kitchen one afternoon and I heard shouting coming from upstairs, so I went up to see what was wrong. I went up to see Madison angrily shouting at Ryan, who was in tears. I asked her what the heck was going on, and she explained that once again Ryan had barged into her room shouting while the baby was sleeping, and as a result had woken her up. I told her I didn't care what Ryan had done because it was no excuse for making him cry. She obviously didn't like that I wasn't on her side, so she started criticizing my parenting skills and saying how I needed to start disciplining Ryan properly. I snapped back at her and told her that if she didn't want to deal with Ryan, she shouldn't have had a child in my house, and if she didn't like it, she could get out. She didn't take me saying that and stormed off. She's refusing to apologize and has been avoiding speaking to me since, which I think is quite petty, but it is what it is. Am I the idiot? What the heck do you mean he can't control how he behaves? A medical condition isn't a free pass to do whatever he wants, or for you to let him. You are the idiot, 100%, and your son deserves better than to be allowed to use a disability as an excuse, or life is going to hit him way harder than you've prepared him for. If Ryan's ADHD is so bad that he cannot understand not to wake a sleeping baby, he has extremely serious issues. There's something wrong with Ryan, and you should show more heart to a young woman who's just given birth and is struggling with postpartum and intense hormones while being sleep deprived. It's probably a case of the boys will be boys approach to parenting. Ryan gets free rein of the house and Madison has to take it or leave it. Makes me wonder what other differences were applied in the past and how they contributed to Madison's current situation. I was a tiny bit on Ryan's side, new baby in what is really his childhood home, lots of energy, until OP revealed that he bursts into his sister's room without knocking while the baby is asleep. OP, so do you and your wife even try to parent Ryan? The daughter was likely pregnant at 19, so there was probably not a lot of parenting going around in general. He's just naturally full of energy. Yeah. All I can think about is the physical and emotional toll and the potential damage to both the daughter and granddaughter stemming from improper sleep. That boy will turn into an entitled monster of an adult because he will live his life hearing that all of his rude, crappy behavior is unacceptable. To me, it seems like he's punishing his daughter by letting his son run wild. The only thing he said about her is that he's disappointed and doesn't even seem to care about his grandchild. Dude, we know you're using Ryan's ADHD to cover up your disappointment with your daughter having a child. Yes, she should get a place of her own if she can, but you're just using your son to mask the fact that you dislike your daughter has a baby at 20. My boyfriend, 33, and I, 36 female, have been dating for 9 months. Unfortunately, he doesn't know how to cook, and this is the cause of tension between us. When he eats alone, it's usually a mix of instant ramen, ready-to-heat frozen meals, cereals, and portion meals his mother gives him. I don't eat meat and can't eat many of these, and a few months into the relationship, it became clear he couldn't prepare food for both of us. I asked him why he doesn't cook, and he said it's a mix of not needing to and being scared of it. He said he doesn't like how cooking has many elements that must come together at different times and finds it stressful. He expressed a desire to learn to cook, so I started to teach him. So far, I've shown him how to make deli-style sandwiches, cheese omelettes, and pizza. Nothing fancy, the kind where you buy the pre-made base and add toppings. Teaching him requires me to help him make a list of ingredients and go to the supermarket to help purchase them because he finds it easier when I'm there to do that. When I show him how to cook, I try to be patient and careful with him because I want him to have a good association with the experience. I praise everything he does, and I thank him when we sit down to eat. But sometimes I find it challenging. For example, when we made pizzas, he asked me if I put tomato on my base before or after oregano. I said it didn't matter, and he got upset with me for not just telling him the right answer. This led to a fight. I've tried to explain to him that it doesn't matter if a meal isn't perfect, we just need to eat. I sometimes wonder if he has a learning disorder or similar, but he's smart and good at learning in other areas of his life. He does clean up and does the dishes after we cook. He always thanks me for cooking. Recently, he's been sending me pictures of food he cooks himself. The other day, he messaged me a picture of some boxed mac and cheese with broccoli and told me he was pleased with it. I didn't reply and changed the subject. Later, he told me he was sad. I didn't say something nice about it because he was proud of himself. The polite and good thing to do would have been to reply with something encouraging, but I'm already doing a lot to teach him cooking and don't want to be a 24/7 cheerleader as well. I'm doing all the mental load of organising food for us as a couple. Usually, when we dine out, I pick the place, and often he asks me what I think he should order. Being a cooking and food coach is okay 1 or 2 nights of the week, and I want him to feel confident, but sometimes I just need a break. Something about the dynamic isn't attractive to me. It's like I'm his mom and he's looking at me for approval. Am I the idiot for not being more encouraging of my boyfriend making boxed mac and cheese? I'm sorry, but am I reading this correctly? You had to teach the man how to make a sandwich. Not the idiot, but I wish you could see the eye roll I'm giving you for thinking a 33-year-old needed to be taught how to assemble a deli sandwich. He's wearing you down on purpose, and it's working because you're falling for it. If you stay together, he'll get you to agree. It's just easier if you do it. You cook so much better than he does anyway. He's all thumbs in the kitchen. You see where this is going, right? This is ridiculous. He knows exactly what he's doing. The deli sandwich jumped out at me too. Weaponized incompetence, so she'll take over. Most people learn those basics by the time they're 10, 8. And even if I never made a deli sandwich before in my life, I'm pretty sure I could figure out how to put slices of meat between slices of bread. Yep, he's in his 30s, still getting to-go meals from mommy. So how did he make it to 33? He needs you to make a list for him to get ingredients and go shopping with him because he can't even look at a list of ingredients and get them on his own. I don't know how this dude even respects himself either. This honestly feels like a manipulation, but a really lame one. Jesus, is that what's left if you don't grab a man in your 20s? My older friends always tell me the dating scene is awful past 30 since it's basically the rejects. Obviously, you're not the idiot, the dude is just being a baby that was coddled too long. So I'm choosing to remain single. It's better than congratulating a dude for boiling pasta. My daughter has been attending the same summer camp since she was 7. Her mother and I separated when she was a tween and we split everything evenly and always paid half and half for her camp. We never intended on it being a long-term thing, but she made friends and they always look forward to seeing each other every summer. Back in October of 2021, I came home to my daughter with a friend I'd never seen before. She introduces her as her friend from camp. She was in the area because her family was going to Disney World. She and my daughter were very excited to see each other. I was apprehensive about having a stranger in the home, but she stayed overnight sometimes. One day I was cleaning through my room and I realized I couldn't find an envelope I got from the bank a few days prior. After tearing apart the house and not finding it, I concluded it must have been my daughter's camp friend. I never lose stuff and I lose money the few days a stranger from across the country has been in my house. I was livid, and when my daughter finally came back, I asked her about it and she told me to lower my voice. Her friend was coming in as well and they didn't see it. I confronted her friend who got overly upset, saying her family was wealthy. She didn't need money and my daughter was defending her, saying that they were never apart, so there was no way she could have. Regardless, I told her she wasn't invited inside and had to leave. This caused a huge argument with my daughter, who didn't speak to me for weeks after saying I'm disgusting. She wouldn't even agree to our custody agreement and stayed at her mother's house for months. We eventually started talking, but it was awkward and short. Then, in the summer of 2022, her mother asked me to pay for half her summer camp and I refused. Why would I pay to board my daughter with a thief? This caused another huge fight and my ex paid for it all that summer. My daughter hasn't spoken to me since and refuses to come over. I decided to sell my car recently, and before I sold it I did a deep clean and ended up finding the envelope in my trunk. I was so confused about how it got there, but was relieved to find it. I felt terrible about the situation with my daughter, so I texted her letting her know I'd found the money and that I was sorry. We spoke and she said that she wanted me to say sorry to her friend on a three-way call, which I did, and my daughter said to make up for it, I needed to pay for all of her camps like her mother did last year when I refused. I was taken aback and said no, I'd just pay for half. She got upset again, saying it's the least I could do after I refused to pay last summer over money I misplaced after blaming her friend and embarrassing her, and I'm a huge idiot. Am I the idiot? I truly thought her friend robbed me and that it was right not to send her there. You are the idiot big time, man. You treated your kid's friend like crap with no proof of any wrongdoing, refused to pay your fair share for camp, putting a financial burden on your ex over this, and even now that you know you were in the wrong, you're not going to do the bare minimum to make up for that. I'm glad you apologised to the girl, but the least you can do is pony up the whole amount next year. You made many massive mistakes here and want to pretend none happened. That is not how it works. You need to own up to your mistakes and make them right. Part of that is paying for what your ex covered last year because it was a mistake to make those accusations and not pay. Maybe then you'd learn that you do make mistakes, and in the future, you'll consider that you could be at fault before accusing children of taking things you misplaced. Your ego is going to ruin your relationship with your daughter, so pay for camp and keep it pushing. Is this the hill you want to die on with your daughter and ex? Also, just out of curiosity, while your daughter was staying with her mom for months, did you pay her mom child support as you should have? I doubt it. The OP values money over his relationship with or care for his daughter. When I was 12-ish, my dad accused me of going into his room and stealing his glasses. I hadn't stolen a thing in my life until that point. I rarely even got in trouble. But that man swore I had to have snuck in there and stolen them because he always put them on his nightstand. They were on top of his TV, right next to his nightstand. I've never forgotten it and he never apologised. OP's kid will never forget unless it's turned into a positive growth experience. My sister was a single parent of 2 when she met her husband, a widowed father of 1. Her kids were a preschooler and toddler when they met, and her husband's son was a pre-tween. They married after 8 months of being together. Her stepson didn't accept my sister or her kids well. My sister told our parents and me her family was going through some growing pains and that her stepson might have an attitude for a while, but to please make him feel welcomed and loved. A couple of years after their marriage, my sister and her husband became foster parents. My sister's husband adopted her older kids. Her stepson didn't want to be adopted and was angry about bringing more kids into the house. Things were messy. Her stepson was acting out a lot and finding many excuses not to be home. She would say things like, "He just needs time," or, "Oh, you know how boys can be." Finally, she and her husband put him in therapy when it got so bad that he was always staying in his room and locking the door. Honestly, my parents and I were concerned about their suitability to have vulnerable foster kids added into the mix, and we spoke to the caseworker. However, they were still considered better than nobody. They ended up adopting from foster care 3 times. 2 bio-siblings, a little girl with special needs and a boy who was only a baby. They continued fostering alongside the adoptions. My sister's stepson is now a mid-teen. My sister and her husband had tried to give him more responsibilities within the family and get him to spend time with all the additional siblings for a chance to bond. A few weeks ago, he was asked to stay home with the kids for 40 minutes while his dad went to work, that my sister would be home then. Instead, he left once his dad was out of sight and my sister got home to the other kids home alone. My sister was so upset and called her husband. He ended up taking the day off work and he found his son and dragged him home. They argued and my sister tried talking to him, hoping he would say why. Instead, he ignores her or says he doesn't have to tell her anything, that she's not his mother, parent or family. It's been weeks of this. My sister is still upset. CPS was made aware of what happened by one of the foster kids and nothing was done. They said it could happen in any family. My sister has been very upset about her stepson's unwillingness to discuss things with her. She told me she's tried multiple times to get him to open up to her and he just won't, and how it's stressing her the heck out. I let her talk a few times and I offered her comfort, but now it's become a fixation and I can't help but notice it's distracting her from the other kids. So, the last time she brought it up, I told her she needed to give in and accept her stepson wasn't going to talk to her and that she needed to leave that to her husband. She's told me he's one of her kids and she can't just leave it or accept it. Am I the idiot? That kid will be out of there at 18 and she will still hope he will one day want to be part of the blended and adopted family. You are not the idiot. This is just a whole mess of a situation. That poor kid. His dad and your sister keep making all these decisions, never considering the impact on him. 8 months? There was absolutely no reason they had to move that fast. They wanted one big happy family. They want the son to open up to her. They want the son to love their siblings. They wanted a house full of kids. They just assume every decision they make is best for everyone when it's only best for them. Now he just feels abandoned and powerless. First he lost his mom and now his dad emotionally abandoned him in exchange for a long list of new kids. That kid shut down his emotions ages ago. Forcing him into family time only worsens it. Your sister needs to leave that poor kid alone.